Konbawa. And howdy. And thanks for being here, everyone. Wow, what a beautiful venue. And I don't know if you saw the moon earlier. It like came out just for us. It was beautiful. This is magical. And see what possible when we really put our minds together. Thank you for that great performance from Aiko Taiki-san. I'm going to do my best with all the Japanese tonight, but it's a little rusty, so I apologize if I've mispronounced anything in advance. We have a lot to share with you today. You want to stick around for some very cool demos, updates on the community, some panels with special guests, and I'm really excited to share just what's going on with WordPress this year, and we'll do a little bit of Q&A for your questions. It feels particularly meaningful to be here in Tokyo for State of the Word 2024. It's a city that has a lot in common with WordPress itself. There's a harmony between legacy and innovation, craftsmanship, technology, and between the huge scale and reach and clamor of it all, and those surprising moments of orchestrated stillness and calm where the chaos just drifts away and it's just you and your thoughts. Tokyo is a city you feel, and that's been on my mind a lot lately with WordPress this year. I've become fascinated with Kansei engineering. It's a Japanese approach to design that emerged in the 70s. At its heart is this idea that excellence in design just isn't about how something looks or works, but fundamentally how it feels to use and how it resonates with people on almost an instinctive level. As we look at where WordPress is today and where we're heading, I hope you see how this principle is influencing everything we do. As you know, Japan was the country that made me realize that WordPress could be more than just a blogging tool. Back in 2003, Japan was the very first language that localized WordPress. It was translated, and this was even before we had a translation framework. So 21 years ago, a user called Otsuka Kare kicked off the Japanese localization on the WordPress.org forums. Here's actually the forum post that kicked it all off. Now, what's amazing is we had no translation framework. So that means that he opened up every single file that was in WordPress, went through tens of thousands of lines of code, and manually changed each one. I remember the first time that I downloaded and installed this, it totally blew my mind to see like WordPress in a completely beautiful script and everything like that. And it kicked off also, we were like, oh, we need to make this guy's job easier. So we did a translation framework. Here's the December 2000 site for the project, which, as you can realize, was only a few months after WordPress itself was released. It's been amazing to see the market share we have here. And as someone who loves publishing of every stripe, I'm always impressed with all the WordPress books that you have on the shelves here. We'll hear more later about how innovation contribution from the Japanese community has gone from strength to strength in the past 21 years. I'll give another little anecdote, which is actually in my middle school in Houston. I went to all public schools, and my Johnston Middle School, just a small, couple hundred-person middle school, had this program that was actually sponsored by Mitsubishi. So in addition to the normal foreign languages normally offered in Houston, Texas, like Spanish, they had Japanese. And so actually for 2 years, sponsored by Mitsubishi, we had this little small, 14-person Japanese class that I participated in. But as you can tell, I got a little rusty on those skills. Also, we couldn't go without mentioning WAPU, WordPress's global mascot. Of all the amazing contributions from the WordPress community, this might be one of the most unexpected. So starting in 2009, we had a discussion when I was here for WordCamp about a cool mascot for WordPress, something that, what's the word for something that's cute? Kawaii. Yes, thank you. Thanks to the generous spirit of WAPU's illustrator, Kazuko Kaniuchi, and the GPL license we love. This is actually GPL licensed. Almost every WordPress community in the world now has their own version of WAPU. Every WordCamp makes one of these. Each adds their local flavor. As you can see, we have WAPUs, with sort of a Japanese Tokyo seal. We have some that are, there's a French one where he's eating a baguette, a Philadelphia one where he's eating a cheesesteak. It's pretty incredible how this Japanese creation can make WordPress feel a little warmer, a little more fun, and a little more approachable. and also a great example of how some of Japanese culture is exported to literally every city that's ever hosted a WordCamp. Speaking of growing globally, let's look at some of the WordPress numbers since our previous State of the Word. And here's a spoiler for the WordPress doomers out there. You're going to be a little disappointed. We're stronger as a platform than ever before. We now power more websites than ever. We're at 43.6%. And according to W3 Techs, which puts us at like a 62% market share of all CMSs. To put that in perspective, globally, the nearest runner-up is Shopify at 6.6%. Let that sink in. Shopify, a company with a market cap of hundreds of billions of dollars, over $100 billion. And WordPress has over 10x the market share, nearly 10x the market share. That's the power of open source community in action. Here in Japan, there's some even more impressive numbers. So we're powering 58.5% of all the websites in Japan and have a 83% market share, which is 31x Shopify, which is only at 2.7% here. Y'all really love WordPress here, so thank you. Moving back to the bigger picture, we've now reached nearly 500 million core downloads in a year, which is kind of incredible. Our global footprint is more diverse than ever. So while English is the most used language, we think it looks like the non-English languages might pass over 50% again. There's some healthy movement with Spanish in second place, but actually German passed up Japanese. Japan's still pretty close, so there's a challenge for you to reclaim the third place this year. Right now, Germany's at 5.99, and y'all are at 5.82. So it's getting close. You can still get there. Among some of the smaller locales, we're seeing rapid growth in some interesting places, most in Farsi, but also in some of the Southeast Asian language, led by Indonesian, followed by Thai and Vietnamese, which is very exciting to see WordPress growing in all these different communities. The shift towards even greater geographic diversity is something I'm looking forward to. It speaks to how WordPress is evolving over time. Since the last State of the Word in Madrid, we've had 3 major releases. 6.5, named after jazz violinist Regina Carter. 6.6, named after the American big band leader Tommy Dorsey. And we hit a very, very cool milestone. Our 50th release was 6.6, I believe. Or was it 6.7? 6.7, yeah. Which we named in honor of one of my favorite jazz musicians, the saxophonist Sonny Rollins, who was actually, I don't think on the live stream you heard it, but we were listening to his music right before we came on. Moving over to the design, in the last 12 months, we've seen over 1,700 new themes uploaded, which is an increase over the 1,400 new themes we had last year, and a new record for us. It looks like we might even hit 2,000 in the next month or so. Also, of those new themes, over 1,000 of them are block themes. So using the new Gutenberg framework, which allows you to customize everything using blocks. When it comes to plugins, the numbers are also pretty wild. We're projected to hit 2.35 billion downloads of plugins this year, which is a 20% year-over-year growth. And as you know, WordPress has an amazing auto-update system. So there's actually been over 3 billion plugin updates served over the past year. And with some of the updates for 6.7, it might even hit 3.5 billion. So that's pretty exciting. Now, you might remember last year in Madrid, because I like to talk about the challenges as well as the successes here. And last year in Madrid, I mentioned that the plugin review queue had gone up to 79 days. And so that meant if you were submitting a new plugin, you had to wait over 2 months for it to be reviewed. I've got some good news there, as you can see from the slide. Thanks to some amazing work from our plugin review team, that queue, which was over 1,300 plugins, got completely to 0 in October. It's not just about speed. The quality of the submissions has actually gotten a lot better. So we launched a plugin check tool. Since we launched that, we're seeing 41% fewer issues approved per plugin, per approved plugin. And the team's approving over 138% more plugins every single week. So huge kudos to the plugin review team for figuring that out and getting more plugins in the hand of the community's hands sooner. With the 20% year-over-year growth, it's clear that plugin ecosystem is thriving. And plugins are really the free market for ideas, where anyone can, try new things for WordPress, some of which might even go into core, or what can completely transform what WordPress does. So again, praise kudos for the plugin review team, who you can see up here. Now, speaking of the future of WordPress, you might remember that we talked about the Gutenberg roadmap. So in phase 1, we worked on editing. So that's where we replaced the classic editor with something that was more modern, had better copy, paste, better features, more performance. Phase 2, which we're exiting, was all about customization. So I was taking blocks from not just being about inside the post or page to being where you can edit your entire site, customize everything with just using the Gutenberg editor. Now we're entering the phase 3, which is all about collaboration. And to talk about our progress there and what we can look forward to, I'd like to welcome onto the stage Matías Ventura, our lead architect. And now, coming up on 14 years at Automattic as well, so congratulations. Thank you, Matías.
Thank you very much, Matt. Yeah, it's 14 years at Automattic. Good afternoon, everyone. Konbanwa. Hope you're all having a fine time. It's really a privilege to be here in Japan. It's my first time in Japan. I'm just having a blast. So we have a lot to go through. And we want to approach this one through sort of 4 lenses. And that is write, design, build, and develop. We'll start with the basics, which is write. And WordPress is, at the heart of WordPress is writing. Like, it's really the heart and soul of the experience. It was the first phase of Gutenberg that we did, but we keep improving the writing experience. There's this beautiful book by Kenya Hara called White that talks about the feeling that white provokes and the value of subtraction. So when we talk about the editor, one of the things that inspires us to see how we can keep improving the experience is this idea of the white sheet of paper when you can just be by your own with your thoughts. To help with this, we have the beautiful distraction-free mode that sort of makes the whole interface recede out. And this year we kept working on a lot of improvements around the direct manipulation of both text and blocks. One that I'm really happy that we added is the ability to just drag blocks directly because before you had to drag this little handle from the toolbar to move things around. Now you can, and this is great work done by Ella, who I think is also among the audience here. Now you can just click on an image directly and drag it to rearrange a story. You can also drag an image and move it to the right or the left of another image to create a stack gallery. This is a fun one because it's a user test that we kept running since the very beginning. It's surprisingly difficult to do side-by-side images. There are many ways to do it in WordPress. But it turns out that one of the most intuitive things that people try to do is precisely this, just drag something next to another. So you can do that now. Now, there's a cool new feature that goes from this distraction-free mode, where you're just abstracted with your thoughts, and it brings over the actual template of the page. So you can now click this Show Template feature, and it shows you the whole site. You're still within the editor. You can still edit everything, but you can go back and forth between this abstracted, pure focus mode and seeing the whole template. So Matt talked, we are getting into this phase 3. So let's talk a little bit about what we are shipping here. The first thing is the ability to comment and leave these little notes on blocks, so you can play the video and see. So you can now select a block, go to this ellipsis menu, another comment, and this allows a whole team to collaborate directly, very like Google Docs, but directly in the editor. We also have, as part of phase 3, working on the notifications framework of WordPress. And these are things that should really be all connected. So as people collaborate and leave remarks, on the story within the editor, you get these notifications, you can resolve them, and you can collaborate with the team. This is actually in the plugin, you can test it today. If you download Gutenberg, you go to the experiments features, you can toggle it on and give feedback. It's an early version, so all the feedback is welcome. Let's move on to design. For design, I think one of our challenges is that we're trying to build both an editor that's beautiful for writing and also an editor that's perfect and great for design. That's a very, I think, rewarding and challenging challenge, essentially. I started my journey in WordPress with themes. In 2011, I designed with Ian Stewart, who's also somewhere in there, the fall theme for WordPress. And it really blows my mind that these days you can fully create and design a theme just with blocks and without having to dive into code at all. To balance out the design capabilities of a tool, which can get overwhelming and complex, one thing we're adding is this distinction, this ability to move between tools for writing and design. So now you'll be able to, by default, you'll be in design, but you can switch to this write or edit mode, where the idea is that you just focus on replacing text, the link of a button, adding images. You can drag something from the media library directly and replace something in a pattern without destroying the design, which is something that we've heard a lot of feedback from people that, okay, there's all these powerful tools in WordPress now, but how do I ensure that my clients, my users don't break things apart? So this mode is meant to work in that way. When you're in this mode, you don't see a lot of the layout primitives, margins, and paddings, and so forth. You just focus on replacing content. Connected to this, we're also adding this new tool we call Zoom Out, which provides this sort of bird's eye view, like taking a step back and seeing the whole page of the site. And here the idea is that you're working with patterns, which are these section elements that sort of compose a whole page. And patterns also support style variations, so you can like very quickly assemble a page before diving into the details. And a lot of the interactions like drag and drop and so forth also work here. Let's talk a little about styles. Styles, I think there's a very cool feature behind styles. That's the theme JSON structure. And one of the things that it allows, so we've just reviewed that we crossed 1,000 block themes. And all the block themes, one of the values that they provide is that it creates the styles on the fly. What that means is that every block theme is a lot more performant out of the box, because it only renders the styles that are necessary for any given page render. So the style section, and we're like taking this out of the template editor and just making it its own standalone style. So here the idea is that you just focus on the visual aspect, the global visual aspects of the site. And it also supports the style book, which is this really cool, beautifully laid out page with typography options, colors, and so forth, that allows you to change and visualize in the abstract how these look. So if you change your color palette, you see all the colors laid out in the page. If you change typography, you see how it affects paragraphs and headings. This is also connected with blocks, so if you want to customize how buttons look, you can just search for buttons and focus on them on the style book. The style book is also not going to be exclusive to block themes. It would also be available for classic themes, and there's been a lot of people requesting this feature. So before wrapping the design section, I think it's important to take a little step back and think about some of these concepts, because our ability to make the software simpler also means finding the right concepts and abstractions and being able to communicate them to users and make them understandable. So for example, on the design side, some of the primitives, like if you take a block, well, what is a pattern? It's just a composition of blocks. If you combine blocks together, you get a pattern. And if you combine patterns together, you get a template. So it's sort of like a compositional element that goes up. So now we'll talk a little bit about build. And here we dive a bit more into the content structures of WordPress. These are more advanced capabilities, but crucial for a CMS, a content management system, to really thrive. So let's begin with block bindings. Who has heard of block bindings? Okay, a few people. It's a bit of a technical term, but the idea behind block bindings is that you have blocks right now are saved, like historically were saved in the content. But blocks are really just an interface. It's an interface to a paragraph, to an image, for the user to be able to visualize the content. But it doesn't mean that the content needs to come from the HTML of the page. Like, it can come from all sorts of different data sources. And data bindings is doing that. It allows to connect blocks to custom fields. So here you insert a pattern, and you can say, oh, I want this image to come from this meta field. So you can configure this, and this allows to use the familiar and intuitive interface of blocks, but to separate the content structure to meta fields and so forth. So here, all the pattern is now arranged, is visually rich. You can directly manipulate it, you can drag an image, but everything is saved into the places that the developer or the builder define. This also connects with a data views project. So the data views is this iteration on the way that list views work in WordPress. The idea is that it should be highly customizable and flexible. So you can see it as tables or as grid items. And custom fields are deeply connected to this so that you can do quick edits for the same stuff that you were visually editing in blocks. It's also presented here by default and built in. So custom fields also connect really well with the query block, which is another advanced tool in WordPress. And speaking of concepts and helping people learn things, the query loop is a really important part of WordPress. It's one of the first things that you learn when you're learning how to build themes, is how the loop works. Now the loop is really in the hands of users. Users can combine these elements. And it's connected with these data bindings projects and custom fields, so you can see how setting up the right URL and attributes, you get this repeated pattern of the loop connected to custom fields, all done inside the editor. So we talk about the concepts for design. When we look at the content management system, it also has its own concepts. So we have content and custom fields and post types. And I think WordPress, part of this refining process in WordPress is to really find what are the essential components and how they aggregate together. Because when we get those things right, there's so many benefits that open up for people. With post types, you get built-in revisions, you get permalink structures, you get a lot of built-in capabilities for free. As we look at the collaboration flow, a lot of these primitives will just work out of the box for post types, for custom fields. So that's why we're layering in all these phases of Gutenberg gradually. We need to get the basics right, so then every level amplifies the level before. So this section is going to be a little bit more nerdy, so apologize. We're going to look at a few developer tools and developer experience improvements. One is a tiny little new API that's called Register Block Template. And this allows any plugin to add to this pool. So WordPress by default ships with the templates that come from themes. So you have archives, the home page, category pages, search pages, 404. But plugins can register their own, like WooCommerce registers many templates for checkout and shop pages and so forth. So with this little tool, you can just add to the gallery, and they just show up in the regular interface. Whereas before, plugins needed to jump through a lot of filters and hooks to set things up. This now simplifies that a lot. We're also adding this concept of activating templates. And this is an important feature that allows to decouple the theme files and the theme code from the templates that users customize. So now you can have all of those in your site and activate them on demand. So imagine you have an event or a campaign where you want to replace the homepage. You can create and customize that template separately and activate it at the right time. Like it'll be integrated into the scheduling system, so you can pre-program when it goes out and manage all of those things within the site. Another cool developer feature that we're working on is the interactivity API. And what the interactivity API allows is to, for me, like the really beautiful thing is that it means that WordPress sites can not just be the most flexible, customizable, and editable, easy to build, but they can also be the fastest sites. So the interactivity API is built on top of WordPress, and you can compare it to these JavaScript frameworks that run on Node, like Vercel's Next.js, or Redux and some of those frameworks. But the interactivity API is built on top of WordPress, so it works with PHP server rendering. You don't need to do anything. And the way it works, if you look at this demo, you can also scan the QR code and see the site for yourself. Every transition is instant. It works with the pagination, with single permalinks. The search is instant. You can now even comment on a post without page reloads. And all of this is just built in. If you have a blog theme, it's an optional feature. Like, it's not that all the sites don't need to be like this, but you can now opt in into this without any extra work. I think this is it makes WordPress really competitive with a lot of these novel frameworks that say, like, oh, WordPress is a dinosaur. But we have a lot of these capabilities that I think are tremendously impactful. And this site performs excellent on Lighthouse, for example. It gets 100 across the board. And again, I want to emphasize, this is just built into WordPress. You don't need to do extra work to achieve this stuff. We've been focusing on performance a lot in the last few years. And part of this system of blocks, the same way that it allows to only render the styles that are necessary for a page, also apply to these things. There's a lot of things that now that everything runs through blocks that we can do to ensure that the site remains performant. So there's one more thing. We've heard a lot of feedback about the lack of responsive tools on the editor and Gutenberg. So this next year, we're going to be looking at how we can provide the ability to control breakpoints, allow users to customize how the different viewports look. And the way we're approaching it is, if we look back at this write, design, build, develop system, is that we need to come up with something that works for every user. So it has to be simple for regular users to modify, and it has to be flexible enough for developers to accomplish things. So the way it's going to work is that it's going to be connected to the device previews. So if you switch to mobile and you make modifications, like you want to remove a block or change some design aspects, this would apply only to the mobile breakpoints. And for developers, they would be able to customize what those breakpoints are. So we want to balance the ease of use with that sort of level of advanced customization. So that will be coming up in the next year. So let's talk about Playground. How many have used Playground here? Okay, a ton of people. Nice. Playground is this really cool technology. So for most users, their first experience with WordPress is they go to the website, they download this zip file, and they double-click on it, they open it, and they see a bunch of files and folders, and they have no idea what they need to do. So then they find, like, oh, there's all this hosting stuff that you need to do to be able to run WordPress. What Playground allows you is to just run WordPress in your browser, so you don't have any blockers to experience WordPress. And we've been making a lot of improvements to Playground. So now you can have multiple instances of Playground within one window, so you can keep all your sites. It works as an offline app, as a PWA. And we have integrated blueprints. Blueprints, for those that don't know, is like you can think of it as these sort of recipes for kickstarting WordPress sites. So in this case, you can have a recipe that's like a WooCommerce shop with a few plugins installed, and you can, in one click, preview that on Playground. This is a cool tool for plugin developers, for education, because you can just package different versions of WordPress and give a real live demo so people can experience it very easily. There's also a ton of documentation and learn tools that have been improved. You can go to the Playground docs and really dive deep into this technology. It's also a really cool thing that's the Playground block. And what the Playground block allows you is to run a Playground inside WordPress. So you essentially end up with a WordPress inside WordPress. Like, It's a total inception. But the thing that it allows is a very useful for learn tools. Like you can have a tutorial that walks someone through like how to do something in WordPress. You can configure a blueprint and just run it inside a story. We're using this in some of the learn materials in WordPress.org. And finally, for both developers and designers, we recently announced like our new WordPress design library system for Figma. So it has already gotten like 1,000, I think 1,300 downloads. So people are really like craving, like getting access to this. And this is connected to our design component system. So it's the same way that you build interfaces for Gutenberg and WordPress. So to wrap up this section, part of approaching this write, build, design, develop is to really take into heart that WordPress is for everyone. So we need to really put our minds together into working out how can it be the best writing tool, the best design tool, the best developer experience. And it takes time, it takes effort from the whole community, but I think it's very rewarding. Before I hand it over to Matt, I also want to Matt, I want to reflect a little bit about the power of open source. We've been here in this beautiful venue, like listening to beautiful pieces of music, and it reminded me that I think one of my first contacts with WordPress was, I think Matt was in Argentina for a WordCamp in 2006 or so, and I read an interview where he was comparing how we have, and I think we're going to listen to a piece of Bach, and I think he mentioned Bach in that interview, how beautiful it is that you can go and read his compositions and learn music from all this historical work that the humanity has amassed. And he was comparing that to software, like, and how we have that duty to give back and make things open and accessible to learn from. So as I hand it back to Matt, I want to thank him for everything he does for WordPress, for pushing this vision forward and making sure that we keep making history with WordPress. So thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you, Matías. That was beautiful. And, you know, we just don't want to make things that work. We want to make it beautiful, right? That's part of the fun of it. Now, we've just seen how Gutenberg is making WordPress a lot more powerful. And we went by some stuff fast there, but for the example, the fact that you can take a playground instance and turn it into an iOS app is kind of amazing. And there's been some fun stuff there as well, where Ella, who we mentioned earlier, actually has taken Gutenberg and made kind of like a simple notes app that syncs to iCloud, is all Gutenberg, but you would never know that it's kind of a WordPress site on the back end. It's using WASM and everything. So we're laying the groundwork for something that's pretty transformative. Now soon, you'll be able to make a site that used to take weeks or months to make in minutes or seconds with AI, but you can still maintain complete creative control. You know, last week, Jamie Marsdell did a speed building challenge. For those who haven't seen a speed build, it's kind of a fun thing. I actually did one a few weeks ago where two competitors come. You're given a website somewhere on the internet, and you have to recreate it in 30 minutes using WordPress or whatever plugins or tools you like. So Ryan Welcher built one by hand, and Nick Diego did one using AI. If you want to watch this, you can scan this QR code to watch it on YouTube. Nick and AI came out on top, 7-1. But I think it's a great example of how AI's not going to replace us, but it can actually help us get more done faster. Everything Matías just showed us, AIs can work with all of it, but you still have granular control on every block. So it can make the first draft. You can then tweak it. And you get all the benefits of being in WordPress. So you get version history, commenting, editing, and collaboration has some cool stuff coming. So we show commenting, but in the future, we'll actually have real-time co-editing using WebRTC, just like a Google Docs or a Notion or something. What makes this possible is the millions of people who contribute to WordPress every day. And to tell us a little bit more about that, I'd like to welcome our new executive director, I think just a month or two into the job, Mary Hubbard. So please come on up, Mary.
It's great to follow tall people, so I have to pull this down a little bit, but I appreciate it. Yes, it is. It's absolutely beautiful here. I'm so looking forward to everything. Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Matías, for that wonderful walkthrough. And to be totally frank, one of the reasons that I am here tonight is because as my new capacity as the executive director of WordPress, it's because so many of you, I am deeply passionate about defending and celebrating the WordPress platform. And our commitment to open source and the community makes all of that possible. And that's not always easy. So as most of you are aware, WP Engine is taking legal action against us. And though that's not something that they've chosen or we've chosen for them to initiate, our hope is still to find an equitable resolved issue or resolve the issue equitably. And their abuse around the WordPress trademark will be resolved. So like Matt, I believe that when you choose WordPress, you should get WordPress. And that should never be anything that somebody is confused about. And that's something that I personally believe is worth fighting for and driving my driving force and motivation of taking on this role. Because we've come too far as an open source platform. And we should not stand by as it's being exploited or watered down for the short-term gains of a few at the expense of the long-term needs of the many. Because WordPress belongs to all of us, and to our community, and that's what I'm most passionate about. The WordPress community continues to grow and collaborate on some truly meaningful initiatives all over the world, both in person and on YouTube and across social media. While events like this are an incredible opportunity to get together, online platforms can open up an entirely different scale in terms of reach and impact. And our WordPress YouTube channel really recently reached 61,000 subscribers. And across all platforms, 2.27 million people now follow WordPress. So when compared and when we have WordCamps and major WordPress events just like this one, when they've been streamed online, they've attracted over 28.5 million viewers, which really demonstrates how important it is for the community to connect, learn, and share. But it's contributors who are the lifeblood of any community and of any open source project. And this year alone, 1,097 developers contributed to code to our 3 WordPress releases, 6.5, 6.6, and 6.7, which is an incredible way to give something back to both the platform and the community. But numbers only begin to tell the story. And this August, Learn WordPress, the community's free learning program, underwent a complete transformation with the introduction of structured learning pathways, making it easier than ever for people to master the WordPress from anywhere at any time. If you scan the QR on the screen right here, you'll be able to take a look for yourself. It's pretty amazing. And these new platforms meet users at their skill level. Beginners can access 24 lessons to guide them from concept to launch, while aspiring developers can tackle 59 lessons over 9 hours of progressive skill building. These aren't just lessons. They're gateways into a global community of creators and developers. And education and learning is pivotal, and something that Matt said in the past that really resonates, and I continue to elevate it, I'll say it again, is that WordPress does belong to us all. And what we're doing is taking care of it for the next generation. And the next generation is critical to WordPress's ongoing growth as a platform. And making it accessible and frictionless as possible has never been more important. In addition to these types of events and learning opportunities, that's where initiatives like Playground, which Matías has just walked us through, really shine. Because Playground allows you to fire up WordPress right from your browser, from anywhere. And you can start working within the platform instantly. It's the perfect jump-off point for young people taking their first steps into WordPress. And that can really empower educators and grassroots communities all over. And just to give a small glimpse of what that looks like around the world, WP Campus Connect is bringing WordPress education directly to Indian college campuses, offering 4-weekend workshops that teach both website building and potential career paths in web development. And in Uganda, the National ICT Innovation Hub hosted a competition where students from elementary through university level built and pitched WordPress projects. That same program concluded With McKeer University, students demonstrating how WordPress could connect local artisans to global markets, showing how the platform can solve community needs and equip young people with valuable skills, confidence, and experience. But it wasn't that long ago that in-person programs like these seemed completely out of reach. And the pandemic was challenging for the WordPress community, especially in terms of events and meetups. So it's been amazing to see some of these stories of the communities coming back together after a long time apart. And after the pandemic caused Latin America communities to go virtually silent overnight, Lydia Arroyo and a team of organizers launched a community reactivation project. And this would rebuild connections across the region. In just 9 months, the project has rekindled WordPress communities in 9 cities, from Buenos Aires to Guatemala City, while establishing entirely new ones in Pereira, Colombia, and New Guinea, Nicaragua. A network of over 150 active members now connect daily through Telegram, and monthly regional meetups have broken down borders, enabling collaboration across countries, with 3 new WordCamps already planned for 2025. Who's ready to go? And incredible communities need incredible resources. You may remember last year Matt mentioned the award-winning Openverse initiative that we took over from the Creative Commons. It's a service that WordPress is giving to all open license content. It's a WordPress gift for all of us. And it's free at no cost. And the big idea here is to index all of the open licensed content in the world for people to use freely. So think of it like a Shutterstock or a Getty, but completely free to use. And like Gutenberg, open source is embedded into WordPress, but it's also available to every other CMS in the world. Open source has seen significant growth this year, and with image index expanding by 13% to 884 million images, and the audio index soaring 59% to over 4.2 million free-to-use audio files. And they're being put to great use, with nearly 4 million page views this month alone and over 21 million API requests. So congratulations to the team and to the community powering this incredible resource. And from entirely free resources like Openverse, open source is on my mind, I wonder why, and Learn WordPress, to initiatives that bring the global platform to local context. This is how WordPress community grows, through students teaching students, through developers mentoring developers, and through communities lifting each other up, and through sharing our learnings and resources to help each other take things further. So when young innovators see the projects make real-world impacts, and when college students discover new career paths, and when community leaders rebuild these connections, these moments compound. And with each step, WordPress grows, and WordPress goes further. And as we're here in Tokyo, we should zoom in, and let's zoom in on the local Japanese community. To hear more about that, I'd like to invite Junko Fukui Nukaga, our community rep, program manager, and WordCamp organizer. Welcome, Junko.
Thank you, Mari. 私は日本語で喋ります。よろしくお願いします。はい。メアリーさん、ありがとうございました。日本でステートオブワードを迎えられることを光明に思っています。日本とワードプレスについてのアップデートを少し紹介させてください。日本語は今、ワードプレスで世界で4番目に多く使われている言語です。先ほどマットさんが触れていましたが、ワードプレスは日本語のウェブサイト全体の 58.3% を支えており、日本における CMS のシェアでは驚異的な 83.2% を占めています。経済規模で表すと、現在では1000億円を超える市場に成長していることになります。今年10月には、日本のワードプレス開発を2006年から牽引してきたデジタルキューブ社が IPO、新規株式公開を果たし、日本プロ市場に上場するという大きな節目を迎えました。これはビジネスの成功を超えて、日本のワードプレスのエコシステムの成熟と可能性を示す重要な出来事と感じています。また、日本のワードプレス関連のビジネスも次々と成長しています。 例えば、三好隆之さんのコンタクトフォーム7は、現在1000万以上のアクティブユーザーを抱えています。桜インターネットや X サーバーといったホスティング企業が、ワードプレスに特化したインフラを整備し提供しています。札幌に拠点を置く企業のハムワークスは、浦部博さんのコアへの貢献をサポートしています。浦部さん、今日来てくださってます。WooCommerce を活用して日本の決済システムとグローバルな e コマースの橋渡しをしているコモジのようなサービスもあります。日本のコミュニティは新しい技術を受け入れるスピードも速いです。2024年現在、日本で人気があるワードプレス製品のほとんどがブロックベースになっています。これも日本のコミュニティがワードプレスの未来をしっかりと受け止め、進化を続けていることを表していると思います。こうした成功は、ワードプレスイベントを企画してくださる方々、参加者の皆さん、そして翻訳に携わる皆さんの貢献のおかげであります。今年だけを見ても、たくさんの素晴らしい活動がありました。少し紹介させてください。今年2月には関西メンバーによる神戸でのワードキャンプ関西2024がありました。そして今夜ここ東京がステイトオブザワードの開催地に選ばれ開催されています。北は北海道から南は九州まで26のミートアップグループが活発に活動し、現在の全体でのメンバー数は11,265人に上ります。2017年にワードプレスミートアップの仕組みが始まったときに、それまで日本であった日本のワードベンチが一つのグループとして登録したことがスタートだと思うと素晴らしい成長です。日本語スラックのワードスラックで毎週金曜夜には黙々翻訳会が行われています。黙々翻訳会は今年で5年目となりました。コミュニティのメンバーが協力して日本語のワードプレスをより使いやすくするために取り組んでいます。特に日本のミートアップはここ数年で大きく成長しています。2021年には全国で106回だったミートアップが今年は新記録の189回に達しました。これはコミュニティ全体の努力の成果で、本当にここまでずっと関わってくださった皆さんに心から感謝しています。ありがとうございます。そして今、日本の貢献者たちは日本だけでなくグローバルでも活躍するようになりました。ワードプレスイベントやミートアップの開催、翻訳といった重要な貢献に加え、コアでも日本からの貢献者の影響が増してきています。これは10年前に比べると本当に大きな変化であり、成長です。それではマットさんを再びステージにお呼びして、この続きをお話しいただきましょう。
Wow. Thank you again, Junko. Another round of applause. That was amazing. I'd like to start out by calling the work of perhaps Japan's most prolific contributor at the moment, core committer Aiki Hamano, who took things to a whole new level in the past year, making 774 contributions to core. He had 168 props in 6.5, was the second highest contributor in WordPress 6.6, and in 6.7 he hit the #1 spots with an incredible 338 props. Yeah. He's sponsored 20 hours a week from Luce and Hostinger, and I think it just goes to show the combined impact that committed developers and businesses, contributing back with Five for the Future, can have on WordPress. And WordPress is definitely in a better place with contributions like this. Wouldn't be possible to name everyone contributing their time and energy to make WordPress great in Japan, but I'd like to call attention to the works of Akira Tachibana, who's a very active Docs team committer, Junko, who was just on stage, who's been doing a lot of great community organization work. And let's not forget the 13 Japanese contributors who actually were responsible for 5.6 or 5.4 of WordPress 6.6 development. Let's give them a huge round of applause. Here's some of them on stage. Stay tuned for some more cool updates on the Japanese contributions from our upcoming panel, The Future of WordPress in Japan. We have awesome guests who are having a big impact on the Japanese WordPress industry. Now, these contributions from all over the world are part of what make WordPress what it is. They will allow us to champion and defend our core principles of democratizing publishing and building a truly open web. The web not that just we want, but that we want our children and grandchildren to grow up in. And that brings me back to something I've been thinking about a lot since last year, and that we announced at last year's State of the Word, which is data liberation. If we want WordPress to be the gold standard of liberation and interoperability, I introduced the Data Liberation Initiative, and that we're now working on parallel with the Gutenberg roadmap. The idea is not just to make WordPress more powerful, but to ensure that we're always to make it truly free. And I mean free in the deepest sense. They say not just free as in beer, but free as in speech. It's the freedom to move your content anywhere, to collaborate without barriers and without constraints. Just as we want everything to flow effortlessly between collaborators and communities, they should also flow freely between systems. Let's say you have an EPUB file, or a bunch of them on your computer. It should be as simple as this. Just drag and drop them in, watch it seamlessly convert and flow into your site's existing beautiful design. Actually, if you check out the WordPress.org news blog, we just posted something very cool from Ella here. That's the future that we're building together, and I'm very excited to see where we take it in 2025. Also, Playground, which we talked about earlier, is all about making data liberation feel pretty seamless in practical terms. So there's now a simple browser extension that you'll be able to use a site. And this is any site, it doesn't need to be WordPress powered. And then it sort of takes the design, turns it into blocks, then you can use Playground as a staging area, making it simple to sort of take any site as a starting point for something you're building or migrate it from other CMSs. If you want to dig in a little deeper, check out this QR code to see the very latest on the data liberation project. It's that fluidity and freedom that make WordPress what it is. Some people might see 2024 as a year of distractions or attacks from bad actors in the community, but it was really a year of growth and focus where we were able to accelerate so many things that we're doing. It's also an amazing year-over-year growth and in a lot of areas. And I just want to say thank you to you, or arigato gozaimasu. We're having a lot of fun with this. And to anyone out here in the audience, in Tokyo or wherever you are, it's never been a better time to get involved. One of the beautiful things about WordPress is anyone can be involved. Whether you have a fancy degree, a PhD in computer science, or you're a college dropout like me, wherever you are in the world, if you want to do it under your name or be anonymous, we have some very cool anonymous contributors. Come join the party. We'll have some fun, make a little jazz, we'll play a little music, make some mistakes, but we'll always come together in the end and just build the future together. So thank you again. Arigato gozaimasu.